Greetings from the mountains of Colombia. As you can see, we're here in the Andes, about an hour from Bogota. And my name is J Weiskopf. The name of the series is Ayahuasca Express. Although we're going to deal with a lot of other subjects, that is the core of this series. Now, while this was going on, these 5 or 6 visits, this was over, say, 2 years, through 2.5 years. I was a journalist, a writer, a would-be writer, a beginning writer. So I started writing articles about it, and of course I connected with a lot of people on the same path. And then I was drawn into ayahuasca politics. Now, one of the objections I have to the usual treatment of ayahuasca is that and there's a video on YouTube where I speak about this, another video, which I put up years ago, is it's conceived of as a strictly personal interior experience. In other words, you hear the testimonies on YouTube, people saying, I saw my dead father and he'd always mistreated me, but I forgave him and he forgave me. Or I revisited, some traumatic experience and I kind of digested it and I understood what it was all about. Or I see that the work I'm doing is meaningless, I have to change my life. It's strictly personal, interior. That's all right. That is a very valid part of it. But there's also an external context. You're in the jungle. You're with people whose mindset is very different from yours. They are surrounded by all sorts of violent and sinister forces. They've been oppressed for centuries. They have to deal with the guerrilla, the paramilitaries, and the coca industry, and that affects the trip. And now, going back to Bogota, that also expands into the people who are promoting ayahuasca, trying to help the indigenous communities, writing about it, talking about it. In some cases, they're looking for jobs, they're hoping to make money out of it. And in this case, it was with a bunch of Colombian academics who felt that they were the only ones who had the right to talk about it. First, because they were Colombians, I was a gringo. Second, because they're academics. And they're serious, whereas I'm just a crazy poet. But as I've said and written many times, who were the real pioneers of these plants? Artaud, who went to Mexico, Ginsberg, who did ayahuasca, Burroughs, who did ayahuasca, and they weren't very rigorous, but they captured the sort of wildness, the majesty of it, as no academic can do or is allowed to do. So in these articles, I mentioned this exterior aspect, the guerrilla, the coca industry. And this was used as a weapon against me because supposedly I was endangering the community. But everyone in Colombia knew what was happening. The danger were the guys with the guns who were actually there. At this time, for example, this community was a temporary camp of the guerrilla. I talked to them, I was there. It was a milder epoch. If I'd been there a year or two later, they probably would have kidnapped me. In fact, once they almost did, but the shaman intervened. And as I said, I was innocent abroad. I had no idea. Well, I knew in theory that this was happening, but it was all glamorous. I was in an adventure movie, Indiana Jones, absurd. I was actually in a perilous situation. But, the eternal romantic turned a blind eye to all this. But anyway, in the meantime, there was a project with the same anthropologists and some NGOs to mount a botanical garden in the community, which was also divisive, because the shaman although he was what you might call the spiritual leader of the community, also had his internal rivals. I mean, it was a question of families. Families had been feuding for years. And so when they saw one family, a rival family, saw that he might get funding for a project, they opposed it, or they went behind his back and tried to get funding for their project. I remember once some government entity donated an outboard engine to the community, and there was a terrible fight, because who was the community? Who represented the community? Only one family can use it. So that was an indication of the kind of turmoil, the social, political turmoil was going on at that time.